Hey guys, I just wanted to show you this really cool tech that I've been doing on the old Demon Bear build. Now, I can't take full credit for it because I got the idea for half of it anyway from someone on Reddit. I'm really sorry, I don't remember your name. I should have screenshotted it. But essentially, it's utilizing jagged ground to consume endurance charges with the Ancestral Cry. Um, while also generating endurance charges through Walking Calamity using Rage Forged. Now, the reason why you consume the endurance charges is this node here, 3% max life every time it consumes an endurance charge, plus an extra 6%, so equals all up like 9% max health every time it consumes an endurance charge, on top of 2% damage as extra fire damage. Now, that can only get up to, I don't know the exact number, but um, you can only consume so many endurance charges in 4 seconds. So it's not like infinitely scalable, but it's a lot of damage. And you sustain your rage through Primal Hunger. Now, you lose the rage effect, which is pretty big, but this node makes up for a lot of that damage, not to mention the survivability. So the main idea is essentially just staying alive by having a lot of armor and a shit ton of like life mitigation through um, this tech here, and also this tech using the sacrifice of flesh. So, 20% less damage, and then it gets distributed over a longer period of time. But then that doesn't matter because we're just genning so much life. So the tech that I wanted to show off, because that was the one I found on Reddit, but the tech that I wanted to show off is particularly with um, the Druid's Wisdom of the Magi and the bonded modifiers. So specifically, you do need Fury of the King. Well, you don't need it, but you won't be able to stay in Ancestral Cry pretty much perma without it. So definitely recommend. But essentially, so it's this one, the one where you gain extra damage as all elements. The bonded modifier actually says there's an 8% chance to gain an additional random charge whenever you gain a charge. Now, by itself, that isn't exactly crazy, but you'll see once the combo goes off how crazy that gets. Now, why you would want other additional charges as a bear that's not interacting with anything, it's just for some passive buffs, utilizing charge regulation. So, like 19% more defenses, 24% increased skill speed, and also crit chance. We're not crit this build. This isn't crazy, but more crits, more damage slightly. And also some other passives on the tree. This one, more skill speed, more damage, that sort of thing. But anyway, I'll show you how the tech works. Once this is full, using like igniting enemies or just the passive generation from Fury of the King, when you turn into this, every step you take using the Jagged Edge is going to consume an endurance charge. And Walking Calamity is going to gen the endurance charges because it's consuming them, activating the bear's passive effect. So you'll see here 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. I know, crazy meme. But you see, I start gaining other charges because of the effect from the rune. Now, it's not always super consistent, but you'll typically throughout maps you'll get like 3 out of 3 pretty much all the time. There's obviously some times where you don't gen them, but these buffs aren't like crazy. It's just an extra icing on the cake. And I imagine someone smarter than me will probably figure out a way to utilize these charges for something pretty crazy. But yeah, so essentially in maps, this is just the loop. Now, a lot of bear builds have a lot of buttons, and I was trying to create something that is just sort of one button, but you have to rely a lot on cooldowns. So skill effectuation obviously is a main focus of the build. So as long as your buffs are up, you're pretty much nigh unkillable. Now, I'll just jump into a random ass map test. We'll chuck a tier 16 bunch of debuffs, whatever, who cares. These are the tablets for anyone interested. And I'll just showcase it to you. Now, the weakest part of this is starting. Once you're in the motions of it, you're gone. But starting off, when you transition from, you know, an abyssal depths or even your hideout, you do have to wait until your walking calamity is ready to go. You can jump in and, you know, do some stuff. Obviously, if it's not too crazy, you won't die. You have a lot of like regen and stuff like that. But once it's up, you can start jumping into them. Now, the tech doesn't fully come online until the Ancestral Cry is ready to go. But because of everything that's going on, it will charge pretty quickly, you'll see. And for my main ability, I just use Molten Crash. It does a lot of damage. It's yeah, it's just basically the one button build. It's just Molten Crash. Now, this is the Molten Crash gems that I'm using, and I use Holy Descent. You can swap this out for another damage one, but I just prefer the survivability of it because of the skill effect duration. The what's it called? Consecrated Ground from these actually lasts, you know, 10 seconds. And because you're jumping all over the place, like, you actually create all this, like, holy ground in the floor. So I'll just give you a quick showcase. Like, you just activate our walking calamity and just jump in. And all you do is just spam the button to jump. Now, you see, even without the Ancestral Cry, you're still pretty tanky, obviously, using like the bear and the armor and whatnot. But once your Ancestral Cry is up, you are just... Obviously, you're not immortal, but with all the charges that you have, all the endurance charges, like, this is why I refer to it as the charge bear, because you just have infinite charges. And with the skill effect duration, like, my Ancestral Cry has like 2 minutes 40 when I first click it. Just makes it like really comfy to like just cruise around the maps and that sort of thing. And yeah, this is the build. You literally just jump around. You don't really do anything else. Now, I have Primal Fury and I have the tech with the freezing enemies and rage. So you can switch to werewolf and like try and freeze an enemy, and then, you know, get that buff where you get a bunch of damage. Just like a plus. But overall, you know, that's just icing on the cake. You don't actually need it. It's just like if you come across a particularly tanky rare or something, you want the extra damage. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The only thing mandatory, I would say, is the Fury of the King. Because without it, you genning the Ancestral Cry is just a pain in the ass. You kind of have to play this on another playstyle, but with it, you pretty much have a firmer uptime, and even when it's not off cooldown, it is just, you know, it regens so quickly that you barely notice it. Now, like, this is obviously a T6 map, which is, you know, juicy off to get it so far, and you can see how comfy it is. Now, you do have to keep on top of your buffs, because if your walking calamity isn't going, then you don't have that constant health regeneration from the endurance charge generation. But walking calamity, you don't have to worry about that. But I'll just show you some boss damage. I'll try and get the freeze tech up to display it. So we'll try it. There we go. Freeze someone, and you just jump on him. It's not the most insane damage, but this is a max tier boss. So obviously, like, you know, 10 million health or whatever it is, and it does pretty well. You're not going to be one-shotting them, but at the same time, it is very hard for you to die with all the consecrated ground and the regen you get from it with infinite charges. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, I have pressed pretty much one button this entire map, aside from keeping the buffs up. I didn't even activate Savage Fury then, because I forgot, I'm a dumbass, but like I said, not mandatory. You can kind of do whatever you want. Yeah, and that's pretty much the build. Now, for anyone interested in what exactly I'm using on my gems and stuff, I'll just go through it slowly. I don't use them all, so forget that. I already went through Molten Crash. Here's my Walking Calamity. Ferocious Roar with the Ancestral Cry. Now, importantly with Ancestral Cry, now you notice how I had like 2 minutes and 40 or something like that. You don't just quality the Ferocious Roar, you also want to quality the Ancestral Cry, because 20% increased war cry duration per endurance charge. Now, all stacked together, when you have 7 endurance charges, you get a lot of duration. 2 minutes 30 something. So that's, that will help you out, makes it a bit smoother. This is the Lunar Assault tech, where you just get a bunch of damage based on your rage. I don't use this a whole lot, probably should use it more, but